I was in Prabhupada's room one time, and there was nobody else there, so I said, I wanted to ask you, Srila Prabhupada, when we're out traveling, a lot of the time we stay up late with the students. If they're going to stay late and ask questions into the night, we stay up with them, because we probably won't see them again. Sometimes they're very sincere. So we're occasionally up until 12 o'clock midnight or 2 in the morning after a program, preaching, talking with students. He said, how do you do, he was concerned about the book distribution, whether it was being done right, and I said, well, we place your books as the altar pieces, because we use the Krishna book as Radha Krishna, and your picture is on the back of it, and we have a panchatat with painting, then we have kirtan, and I give a lecture, and we have more kirtan, we give up prasadam, we invite the students to come and look at the books and talk to us. He said, he smiled as he started smiling as I was talking. He said, oh, that is very nice. He said, if you just continue to do just like that, he told me, it does not matter how many books you distribute, because your program is different. It will attract devotees. So he specifically said, quote, it does not matter how many books you distribute. He said, as long as you're presenting them nicely, which we were doing. Right? So he was actually real pleased. And I said, well, I'm a little worried because sometimes because we get to bed real late, we get up 6 hours later, we're not up for a Mangala Artik, or we're not up by 4 o'clock in the morning, so we're not really following the exact sadhana. And Prabhupada was still smiling. He said, that is all right. He said, because you are doing Sankirtan, he said, that will be fine. He said, then he told me something. He said, I have written in my books that our movement runs on 2 tracks, which are called the Pancharatriki Bidhi and the Bhagavad Bidhi. He said the Pancharatriki Bidhi means the rules and regulations of deity worship, and our temple sadhana is centered around it. Because of the Mangalartik, etc., it sets all of our time of activities and like that. Right? And it's very valuable for devotees to become strong. Right? By being regulated. He said the Bhagavad Bidhi is simply chanting, dancing, feasting, and philosophy. And it is Lord Chaitanya's process. That is really what Lord Chaitanya came to propagate. He said when he instructed the Goswamis to write, they produced books which he said they added some modes of worship from the previous age mode of worship, which was deity worship, in order to make the process appear more Vedic to the Smarta Brahmin community in India, who are otherwise criticizing Lord Chaitanya, that we do not find this in the Vedas. So to make it appear more Vedic, he said they added certain things, and that is what we call the Pancharatriki Bidhi, right? So even though I say in my books that our movement runs on 2 tracks and they are both equally important, he said, I will tell you that that if you can get along without the Pancharatriki Bidhi in this age if necessary, but you cannot get along without the Bhagavad Bidhi. This is why your Sankirtan activity is sustaining you even without the regulation of the regular deity worship. He said, so if a devotee needs to be strengthened, then send him to the temple or return him to the temple, but otherwise the Sankirtan will be all you need. And then he told me, do not preach like this. Do not speak like this. And I said, why? Because I was all ready to run out and start singing. I thought it was wonderful what he explained to me. And he said, no, he said, many devotees are attached to the deities and the deity worship in a very sentimental way, which is helping them to be attached to Krishna consciousness. And if you explain like this, they may mistake it that you are criticizing the deity worship, right? Or the deity, that it is less important or unimportant. Right? So therefore, do not preach like this. I'm explaining this to you for your own understanding of priorities, in other words, which was very nice of him.
Once he said, the rules and regulations are because you have no self-control.
One time Prabhupada would tell me, another thing he didn't like is that I would fall asleep sometimes. As soon as I get in the car, I'd fall asleep. So we were riding in the car, in the back seat I was sitting next to Prabhupada. And I was just like this. So Prabhupada said, you are sleeping. So I said, no, Srila Prabhupada, I'm not sleeping. He said, you are sleeping. I said, I don't think I was sleeping. He said, I said you were sleeping, you're sleeping. He said, chant Hare Krishna. So I started to chant, And Prabhupada was chanting japa very quietly, and I was going, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare. And then when you know how you catch yourself when you stop. Then I looked at Prabhupada, just chanting. Another time, Upendra was sleeping in the front seat. He was going like this. So Prabhupada leaned over, and he very gently caught Upendra's sika from behind. So when Upendra went like this, the sika yanked. Upendra turned around. He thought I had done it. He was very angry, But it was Prabhupada had caught his sika.
We went to one engagement, and I can't recall exactly where it was, but it was a big, huge feast that this lady had prepared for us. And there were onions all throughout the vegetables. And it was delicious. It was vegetarian, but there was onions. So one of the devotees, I think it was one of the men, I can't remember which one, leaned over to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, there's onions in the vegetables. He whispers it. Prabhupada looked at him like he was, his eyes were on fire. He was so angry. He said, quiet, eat. He didn't want to offend her. He was very sweet. He said, it doesn't matter, just eat. And then another time, they were serving us chocolate, and we all thought, oh, you're not supposed to eat chocolate because it's got caffeine in it. And Prabhupada said, eat it. He was he said, just eat it. You can have ice cream, it doesn't matter. So he was casual in some ways and strict in other ways, but I think that his principle was he didn't want to offend our hosts more than being a stickler for the rules and regulations. And that was more of a concern to him, I think, than the fact that there was onions in the vegetables. He didn't care. And he ate it and complimented her on her cooking. So it was a great example.
So Prabhupada had a very big appetite. He really relished prasadam. And he would take at least 45, 50 minutes to take prasadam. And he would eat alone. And he would chew and chew with his eyes closed. Chewing, chewing, chewing. And just really relishing prasad. When we went to India, of course, we got to eat with Prabhupada regularly because we would be invited. Prabhupada said, this is preaching. He said, we make members by eating. He said, very good preaching. Because in Surat, when we went to Surat in Gujarat, he made a condition that he would only take prasadam if the person would become the life member. So we got 30 days invitation. He made 30 members. He said, this is preaching. Then all the devotees would sit together. Prabhupada would be at the head on their little chonkies, and we would all sit and take prasad. So it was very nice. We got trained to take prasadam with Prabhupada.
After Jaipur, Prabhupada, the Maharaja of Jaipur had decided to give us a property that was behind Govindaji's temple. And so Prabhupada didn't think, me being a woman, I could manage things on my own. So he left Devananda there to work with me, and another Indian brahmachari that I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, to make a long story short, they backed out on their offer, which is why we don't have a temple in Jaipur, but they were originally going to give us an actual old palace. And then they backed out on their offer after Prabhupada left. So we came back to Mayapur, and the rumor mill had been running hot and heavy that Devananda and I had had an affair. So I was very, very upset about it. And I wanted to just shave my head and live in an ashram. There was one of Prabhupada's godbrothers had an ashram just outside of Mayapur, and so I went into him and I said, Prabhupada, I can't take it. I just want to shave my head and live in the forest, and I don't want to have to, suffer all this criticism and all these rumors and stuff. And he said to me, why are you complaining? He said, look what I have to take. You think you have to take so much? He said, Kaushalya, you are looking for a calm sea, and you will not find it here. You will not find it here in this material world. You will only find it in Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna. And so he said, I would let you go and shave your head and live in the ashram, but I would worry about you. So you cannot go. You must stay with me. I said, fine, as long as I can stay with you. So that was that.
Prabhupada was in a room in London, Bury Place, and he was appreciating the service of Jamuna Devi. Prabhupada glorified Jamuna Devi unlimitedly for her qualities and her devotion. He once wrote her a letter that she was on the level of Bhava Bhakti. In a letter he wrote this, very high position. And but one day he said to me, he said, if she weren't a woman, I would make her a GBC. If she weren't a woman, I would make her a GBC.